So I was cut off my last video while saying that AI doesn't have any more credibility than an individual scientist. Um, and again, going back to resources, the amount of resources that AI use versus the individual scientist, it becomes pretty obvious which one is the more efficient resource-wise. So it's not even a question how much work an individual can do, given if very little resources versus what the AI needs just as a baseline level of operation. It's not even a comparison. And that's why it's never made, because if it was, AI would quickly be shown to be very inefficient. Not just AI, but technology in general, since the Industrial Revolution, since science really took a hold of our manufacturing process and just made it dead, soulless, um, turning every individual of the lower class, of the majority really, into a very small piece in a very large machine. And very large machines, as we have come to know, require very stable conditions, a lot of maintenance. And if that maintenance and if those conditions aren't met, you quickly have a cascading collapse. So machines, even as they're sold for their reliability, for the efficiency, become very inefficient, become very unreliable. They're always broken. They always need repairs. You can't repair them because the technology is proprietary. That's another obstacle, and a very big one. You're not education, which is public in most places. Repairing machines and knowing how machines work and how they're made and the entire logistical chain behind it isn't part of public education. So this leads to a public atmosphere where AI or language models are simply tools for marketing, replacing the product with just pure marketing, interactive marketing. So yeah, logistically, it just doesn't make any sense, and it cannot be justified. And every kind of counter argument that I've seen against this always leave behind the supply chain, always making false assumptions that AI could somehow make itself more efficient. When programmers, engineers don't design these language models for that purpose, right? You can train, I guess, would be the counter argument outside of the company, but that isn't the main focus of the company, making it efficient or making it useful in a sustainable kind of way. That's not the goal, as we can see right now, and how the companies and the people inside those companies are promoting this product, and making very, very, very big, very bold assumptions and promises that cannot be checked logistically. There's no benchmarks. There's no points where we can look objectively and empirically and measure, quantify, and give data that we can analyze. It's all subjective. Whereas behind what's happening, of course, there's AI is taking a piece of the pie, right? And we are very much in the same kind of trajectory as we've been since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, 1700, 1800s. And that is to create a product, to innovate scientifically, technologically, and then uh, don't focus on the consequences until there is a mass collapse, until there is so much death and destruction and suffering that um, there is no more room to ignore the problem that it has created. Um, so we've seen this with labor laws, uh, beginning of the industrial revolutions, sending child to mines, to textiles, and putting people into contact with chemicals, newly invented chemicals um, that were not tested uh, in human contact before being put into the market. And we see this still happening today, and this becoming the baseline for how our economy and our industries work, which is to promote something new, get away with the consequences of this something new because there's no regulations, there's no awareness in place. And when this product create mass casualties, then we can be contrite, we can make apologies, we can whitewash, greenwash, whatever, give to foundations and that kind of stuff, and basically put a plaster on an amputated limb, thinking that moving forward, this is not going to gangrene. It's not going to create problems in the long run. And this accumulates. So a few hundred years of this, we now have a population, as I've said in the beginning, that doesn't know how to feed itself, to clothe itself, to shelter itself, and relies on the labor of others that most of the time are deemed as lesser beings, as not as worthy as much resources, not as worthy as much pleasure, and often this is justified, this hierarchy, class division being justified as, oh, well, this person didn't work as hard as I did, so this person deserves to suffer more than I did. And any kind of contradiction to this very faulty logic is ignored, basically. And AI comes into this picture because it promotes this delusion, because if a person is looking for reasons to not interact with people around them, so if people are looking for reason not to be in a confrontation and looking for this acknowledgement and this attention without having to reciprocate, because others have desires and wants and needs, and they have pain and pleasures just as much as we do, but because we don't want to be the person listening, we just want to be the person talking, AI becomes very, very convenient, just as technology has done for a few hundred years. We just replace interpersonal relationships, and these relationships being grounded in logistics of survival. So your neighbor grows a resource or extracts a resource, and you have this resource, and you trade and reciprocate this behavior. And if there is an injustice in the trade, you can go see your neighbor and ask what's up, right? You can confront the individual next door. With AI, tough luck, you cannot confront the individual next door. There is no next door, there is no neighbor, which is the appeal of AI, which is the secret hidden appeal of any technology, and that is to replace the labor that gives you the pleasure and the reward with convenience based on the work of someone else. So mineral extraction for machines, right? Whether that be the steam engine, whether that be the fuel, whether that be solar power, electric cars, all innovation rely on everyone's desire to be lazier. conflating laziness or an easier life with a good life. So conflating having something which is nature is natural, because why wouldn't you get the resource that is closer instead of walking farther away and having more chances of dying in the process, right? So you're decreasing your chances of dying, increasing your chances of survival by behaving this way in society. But by behaving this way, there's a catch-22, because by adopting new survival practices, you're leaving behind the old one, the more sustainable ones, right? The ones that if something collapsed, the weather, society, anything, if something doesn't go as planned, then you are able to take things into your own hand to a certain extent. The more complex society is, the more you build your logistical chains, the more you connect people together through these logistical chains, the bigger the collapse, which is the definition of entropy. So, because especially at the beginning of the change, so in natural systems, if you have a system in which nature no longer produce the resources that you are extracting, if this chain is planet-wide, if it's global, then one small collapse at one specific part of the planet can lead to a cascade of collapse into all other systems, because everything is now connected. And that's the big appeal of globalization, and that's the big appeal of technology, of innovation, of bureaucracy, administration, and that's the justification of all this. Elitism, if you will, in a nutshell. And AI comes to the forefront of this because it creates this ultimate place where you have all this information, all the knowledge you could possibly have, all the reasoning power you could possibly have at your disposal. But if something is wrong, if it lies, if it hallucinates, if it tells you to break the law, then at the end of the day, there is no one specifically to confront, like your neighbor, right? There is nobody at the end. There you could confront. You could argue that the founder of the company, like for Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, having to go to Senate or Congress to explain himself, right? That would be a good example. But at the end of the day, he didn't create the program, and he can use that as a justification and all other excuse. Whoops.